3 days ago, I produced and posted a video onto my Instagram, and today I wanted to show you how I produced it, how I created it. Partially for myself because I need to remember how I do these things, but also because I think it's interesting and I do want to share some of the resources I used. So essentially, all of the software I used is open source. And essentially, open source means that the source code of the program is open to everyone. You can freely use it, you can alter it, contribute to it. They're generally ran by teams of volunteers and are run on donations, or at least donations are appreciated. A really successful example of open source software would be something like Ubuntu or Debian and its other distributions. Linux is an open source operating system and is a lot of people's introduction to open source software. But this isn't wholly what this video is about. But essentially, it's documenting a process and creation and showing you the resources you can use to produce something like that. I'll start with showing off or showing the source video because it's if I just revert all of the stuff I did just for a second, just to show you the base video or the video that you saw. This is the you've probably seen this if you've been on my page. It's quite abstract, but the image itself is actually a recording. No, I didn't want to do that. Give me a sec. There we go. This is the base video. It is a recording from the window of a train, and it's shot using something called Open Camera, which is a camera software for Android. It's free, it's open source, and you can essentially mess with the encoding, which is something a lot of other software won't allow you to do. And that means I could shoot at 4K, but use a poor encoding, which kind of enabled me to produce a video with lots of what you'd call video artifacting, which is when the kind of remnants of an image will remain on the screen. And these are interesting, and this kind of relates to the photographs I was taking. But with that, I was shooting at low resolution. Well, I was shooting at high resolution. No, this is basically the same. Because I was shooting... basically, the way JPEGs work is when you take a picture, it will encode it, and you can change the quality of that encoding. And at very low qualities, you get limited color palettes, pixelation, and you get some interesting effects. And I've been kind of honing that into something a bit more interesting. I've been expanding into video, and I'm not entirely sure how video encoding works, but I've definitely been playing around with it. But to the software I was using. For the video side of it, I was using Kdenlive, which I was using for streaming before. It's essentially like an open source video editing software. And by streaming, I kind of picked up on how to use it from editing videos. And I started to discover that it operates like Photoshop with the filter system. I can apply, and it's probably not as sophisticated as Adobe Premiere, but it gives you some tools to play with. And if I turn down the saturation and turn off things like sharpen, defish, which is like a fisheye lens thing. It gives the impression of a fisheye lens. Take away the denoiser and the mirrors. You have the original image, and I guess the idea was I was taking the original image and I was constantly altering it until it became something entirely different. Something but basically unrecognizable. And one technique I was okay, that's not what I wanted to do. Yeah, there we go. And one technique I was using was denoisers. And denoisers basically, generally it reduces the noise in a video, but in more extreme cases, when you turn it all the way up, you can create something that has like, I'm still messing with it, but you can, the artifacting remains, it kind of adds a blur. And instead of the artifacting going away, it kind of remains and it blends into each other. So instead of showing up and then disappearing every second, you get something a lot more smoother, a lot more abstract. And I've been playing with this quite a bit. I then applied charcoal. And this is something that didn't make the cut in the end, but it essentially created this like it acts like how like the drawing tool in Photoshop does. You know, it identifies lines and it kind of traces them, or at least brings a degree of like definition to them. And this didn't make the cut in the end, but it was all right. I think it was interesting, and how you add these effects is you go to the effects window and you just I'll add something that kind of overlays. I'll add it there, and essentially what it does is it applies a filter on top, or a kind of the utilities are more complex. I don't understand those yet. I think they're for video values. That's more for like professional editing, and yeah, that's all right. I think I might explore that, but basically what I continued to do is I added things like saturation instead of like adding color using the charcoal tool. I kind of added color using saturation and created something quite like abstract, quite interesting. It almost reminds me of like interpolacing. It kind of morphs and warps in a very kind of naturalistic way. And then I added defish, which kind of gave it this kind of rotating dimension. And after that, I mirrored the video. I mean, that's the vertical mirror, and that's the horizontal mirror. And I mirrored it twice to create this kind of like strange portal effect. And all this is be underneath all the jargon. It's essentially just applying filters. You've probably done it on the phone, and essentially it's just playing around. And I think this is like quite accessible as far as like editing software goes. Some of it's a little complex. I've had to go on to plenty of like I've had to do a little bit of reading, but once I got my feet kind of when once I got my what would you even call those? I don't know. Once I got my bearing on it, it became easier. And the original video and audio separates by default. So I also edited the audio, and I used a sine oscillator to kind of, and if you've ever messed around in something like FL Studio, you might know what an oscillator is. This works kind of differently. It's more like a filter, and by messing with the frequency in the wet dry, I essentially created something that sounds bit crushed. And you won't be able to hear it that well because it's mixed into the thing, so it's a background noise. But if I turn it up, yeah, you've kind of got this slightly haunting like sound. It's kind of like old security footage, or like you know, something you'd hear, or like a voice modulator in a old video game. You hear that crunch. I'm gonna move that. I don't know how to undo in this, so don't. I go. Oh yeah, I edit undo. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's what I do. I'm not a professional. This video, I almost lost this video to like corruption. So I'm not saying that I can like, I can do everything. It's mainly just I think it's interesting. And then this piece of audio has an interesting history.
It is the reflection of a profound reality.
Because the like quote is from Jean Baudrillard's or Baudrillard's Simulation and Simulacra, which is a book I've been attempting to wrap my head around, and essentially I recorded it in a program called Natural Reader, which I occasionally use if I'm doing something else and I want to still like listen to a book. And essentially it uses the Microsoft voices, and so you get this kind of synthetic voice reading for you, and I thought that was kind of funny considering the subject matter of the book. So I used another piece of software called Audacity, and I sadly I've everything's collapsed in on itself. Sorry, it's that's not how you say it, but everything's kind of combined. I flattened it for some reason. I didn't really know what I was doing. So I can't show you the different channels. But essentially what I did is I took, sorry, I'm not very good at this software. I'm trying to drag the point back, but I think I just do this.
It is the reflection of a profound reality. It is the
I essentially took this and I recorded it. If I add mono tracks, I can show you what I did. I essentially like set my recording settings to playback devices, and I use it to record from my headphones, from my audio device. So whatever I played back. But then I set it to my microphone, and I put my headphones over my microphone, and I played it back again, creating a second, kind of more, kind of poorer version of the audio, which echoed, kind of creating an echo effect. And the third one was I sampled a noise track from Ramler, and I just kind of I sampled it essentially. Which if you're sampling stuff, this isn't commercial, so it's not really a problem. But I think it's probably if you're doing something commercially, it's probably worth considering like things like rights and stuff. I just thought it was kind of a cool background track, and I combined all of these. If you watch this, I can record. I can set my microphone. Where is it? There we go. I can, and sometimes it does this, but I can create another recording. And you can do this on any mic. You can do it on a laptop mic. You can do it with like a professional quality mic. This is like a streaming mic that's kind of like it's a decent, it's very good value for money, and it's definitely sorry, undo that. One weird thing is sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it records to another thing. I'm not entirely versed in using this, but I took this audio, I exported it, placed it in the software, and that it is a second track. Did the same thing, mixed them together, and essentially it created like this kind of audio scape that you see now. I'll turn it up.
masks and denatures a profound reality.
it creates something different. It creates something that's kind of like its own thing. But that's about it. That's how I created this. You know, sorry if it's a little bit long, but this is probably just the best way of doing it.